Most men are sleepwalking through life. They're soft, scared, and silent when they should be speaking up. They compromise their integrity just to fit in. They fold under pressure instead of standing tall. If you're one of them, listen up, this speech will slap you awake. Real men live by a code. And there are 8 things they never do. If any of these sound like you, fix it. Or keep lying to yourself and stay weak. Make excuses. Excuses are poison. Weak men sip on them daily. I don't have time. I wasn't raised right. It's too hard. Shut up. Real men own every failure, every loss, every screw up. They don't cry about their situation, they change it. Life doesn't care about your excuses. Neither does success. Neither do I. If you keep making excuses, don't call yourself a man. Call yourself what you are, a coward looking for an easy way out. Complain. Whining is for the weak. Real men face problems head on. You got bills stacking up? Work harder. Your body's breaking down. Adapt. Someone hurt you? Get tougher. Complaining won't fix a damn thing. It just makes you sound like a victim. And victims get eaten alive in this world. If you want something to change, get off your ass and change it. Their word. Your word is your backbone. Break it, and your spineless, weak men lie to themselves and others. They promise things they can't deliver. They say one thing and do another. A real man's word is iron, once spoken, it's law. If you say you'll do something, you do it, no matter how tired, broken, or beaten down you feel. Because if your word means nothing, neither do you. Avoid pain. Pain is the best teacher, but weak men run from it. They avoid discomfort, dodge responsibility, and hide from adversity. That's why they stay weak. Real men chase pain because they know it sharpens them. They know that struggle builds strength. They don't fear the grind, they embrace it. Every hard workout, every sleepless night, every sacrifice, it all forges something unbreakable inside them. If you're scared of pain, you're scared of growth. Blame others. Losers blame everyone but themselves. It's my parents' fault. My boss is unfair. The system is rigged. Real men don't play the blame game. If something goes wrong, they take full responsibility. They own their mistakes, their failures, their setbacks, because the moment you blame someone else, you give up control. You're not a real man if you point fingers instead of stepping up and handling your business. 6, real men never stay comfortable. Comfort is the enemy. It makes you weak, slow, and soft. Look around, most men today are addicted to comfort. They sit on the couch, scrolling their lives away, numbing their minds with entertainment, junk food, and cheap thrills. Real men destroy comfort. They wake up early, train hard, and push themselves past their limits every day. If you stay comfortable, you stay average, and average is just another word for forgotten. Their purpose. A man without purpose is a dead man walking. Weak men drift through life going wherever the wind takes them. No mission, no drive, no direction. Real men wake up every day knowing exactly why they're here. They chase their purpose with everything they've got. They don't quit when it gets tough. They don't let distractions pull them away. Because they know that a man without purpose is just another lost soul waiting to fade away. Fear failure. Failure is not the end. It's a lesson. Weak men quit when they fail. They let one loss define them. They stay down because getting up is too damn hard. Real men fail, get up and go again. They learn from every setback and come back stronger. If you let failure break you, you were never built for success in the first place. Get up, go again, and again, and again until you win. Final words, be a real man or stay weak. This world is full of fake men, soft, scared, and silent. Don't be one of them. Live by this code, and you'll stand out. Break it, and you'll fade into the sea of mediocrity. The choice is yours. Be real. Be relentless. Be the man you were meant to be. Or keep making excuses, blaming others, and hiding from your potential. But remember this one day, you'll have to answer for the life you lived. Make sure you can look yourself in the mirror and say, I gave it everything I had. Excuses are for the weak, own everything. Most people spend their entire lives lying to themselves. They tell themselves they're doing their best, that life is unfair, that they would have made it if only the odds weren't stacked against them. That's all bullshit. Excuses are the foundation of weakness. The moment you let one slide, you open the door for a lifetime of mediocrity. Real men don't make excuses, they own everything, no matter how painful it is. You wake up late and say you're tired. You didn't train because you had a long day. You didn't chase your dreams because your family didn't believe in you. Look in the mirror and tell yourself the truth. You're the only reason you're not where you want to be. Excuses feel good in the moment, but they poison your mind. They make you weak, soft, and incapable of handling the real pressure that life throws at you. Owning everything means owning your failures. It means looking at every screw up, every missed opportunity, and every setback and saying, that's on me. Most people will never do that. because it's easier to point fingers. It's easier to blame the world, your past, your genetics, or your circumstances. But none of that matters. The only thing that matters is what you're willing to do about it. That's the difference between being average and being unstoppable. Weak men avoid accountability because it's uncomfortable. They don't want to admit they're lazy. They don't want to accept that they gave up too soon. They'd rather create a story that makes them feel better about failing. But real men don't need stories. They don't need excuses. They don't need validation. They only need one thing, the cold, hard truth, because when you stop lying to yourself, you can finally start fixing your life. You say you don't have time, but you waste hours scrolling on your phone. You say you don't have the right connections, but you haven't done a damn thing to build them. You say you're unlucky, but you've never outworked the man next to you. The world doesn't owe you anything. No one is coming to save you. You either take responsibility for every second of your life, or you sit there waiting for a miracle that will never come. Excuses turn men into shadows. They keep you small, weak, and forgotten. Every time you make an excuse, you let yourself off the hook. You tell yourself it's okay to be less than what you're capable of. And if you do that enough times, it becomes who you are. Weak men don't just make excuses, they become their excuses. They carry them like a badge of honor, a reason to stay soft, a reason to stay average. Owning everything isn't just about admitting your failures. It's about taking control. If you own your mistakes, you also own the power to fix them. If you admit you're out of shape, you have the power to get fit. If you admit you've been lazy, you have the power to start grinding. But if you keep making excuses, you give up that power. You hand it over to fate, luck, or whatever story you tell yourself to avoid facing reality. Life is a war, and every excuse is a bullet that weakens your armor. The more you make, the more you bleed. And one day you'll wake up too weak to fight, too soft to handle pressure, too broken to build anything meaningful. That's what happens when you let excuses pile up. They don't just slow you down, they destroy you. They turn you into a man who watches others succeed while wondering why he never made it. You see men who have everything you want: strength, discipline, success. And instead of learning from them, you look for reasons why they had it easier. You tell yourself they were lucky, they had better genetics, they had more support. That's what weak men do. Real men see someone ahead of them and say, I need to work harder. They don't make excuses, they make progress. That's why they win and you don't. Owning everything means embracing pain. It means looking at every hardship as a test, not an excuse to quit. It means understanding that struggle is the only path to strength. Weak men run from that truth. They look for a way out, a shortcut, a reason to stop. Real men lean into the pain. They take every loss, every failure, every moment of doubt, and use it as fuel. They don't complain. They don't cry about how unfair life is. They just keep moving forward. Most people will never change because they refuse to take responsibility. They want success, but they don't want to own the grind. They want respect, but they don't want to earn it. They want an easy life, but they don't want to admit they've been choosing comfort over discipline. That's why they stay stuck. That's why they never break through. Because they'd rather protect their excuses than face the brutal truth. Real men don't let their past define them. They don't sit around feeling sorry for themselves. They don't let setbacks turn into lifelong failures. They own every part of their journey, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And because they own it, they have the power to change it. That's the difference between those who win and those who watch from the sidelines. Winners take ownership. Losers make excuses. That's it. If you want to change your life, stop making excuses. Stop waiting for the right moment. Stop blaming everything and everyone except yourself. No one is coming to fix your problems. No one is going to do the work for you. The day you decide to own everything is the day you take back control. It won't be easy. It won't be comfortable, but it will make you unbreakable. And in the end, that's what separates the real men from the rest. There's no secret formula to success, no magic trick, no shortcut, no easy path. There's just one rule: own everything. Own your failures. Own your weaknesses. Own your grind. Because the moment you stop making excuses, the moment you stop lying to yourself, the moment you decide to be accountable for every second of your life, that's the moment you become unstoppable. That's the moment you become a real man. The choice is yours. Keep making excuses or start owning your life. Keep waiting for the perfect moment or get up and make something happen. Keep being weak or step up and take control. Every second you waste, every excuse you make, every lie you tell yourself is one more step toward mediocrity. If that's the life you want, keep going. But if you want more, if you want to be relentless, if you want to be something greater, then own everything starting right now. Pain is your greatest teacher. Stop running from it. Pain is the truth most men avoid. It's the weight on your shoulders, the fire in your chest, the voice in your head screaming at you to stop. Weak men listen to that voice. They break when life gets hard. They run from discomfort, looking for an easy way out. But real men don't run from pain, they chase it. They understand that suffering is the price of greatness. Every scar, every struggle, every moment of agony is a lesson that builds something unbreakable inside them. You can tell who's weak by how they react to pain. They cry about their hardships. They crumble when things don't go their way. They quit when the road gets rough. They act like victims instead of warriors. Life slaps them in the face, and instead of fighting back, they fold. If that's you, wake up. Pain isn't here to break you, it's here to mold you. Every moment of suffering is an opportunity to get stronger, but only if you have the guts to embrace it. Most people don't want to hear this. They want comfort. They want an easy path. They want success without struggle, results without sacrifice. That's why they stay weak. They avoid hard work, dodge responsibility, and make excuses for why they haven't leveled up. They act like they're entitled to a life without suffering. But the truth is, suffering is the only way you grow. If you keep running from pain, you'll never be strong enough to handle real pressure. Pain exposes who you really are. It strips away the lies, the excuses, and the masks you wear. When life hits you with adversity, you have two choices: break or break through. The weak look for a way out. The strong look for a way forward. Pain doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about your comfort. It's there to test you, to see if you're built for this life, or if you're just another person pretending to be strong until things get hard. Weak men avoid suffering because they think it's unfair. They think life should be easier, that they shouldn't have to struggle. But real men know pain is a privilege. It's a gift that forces you to dig deeper, to push past your limits, to find out what you're truly capable of. Every time you embrace pain instead of running from it, you level up. Every time you endure suffering instead of quitting, you become harder, sharper, and more unstoppable than before. Think about every great man in history. None of them got there without suffering. They weren't handed success. They weren't born into strength. They earned it through blood, sweat, and relentless grind. They faced obstacles, failures, and brutal pain, but they didn't quit. They didn't cry about how hard it was. They didn't sit around waiting for someone to make it easier. They leaned into the suffering and came out on the other side, forged in fire. Pain is what separates the real from the fake. Weak men look for shortcuts. They want the rewards without the struggle. They see someone strong and assume they were just lucky. They don't see the late nights, the early mornings, the thousands of hours spent in agony pushing past limits. They don't see the sacrifices, the failures, the losses. All they see is the result, and they think they deserve the same without putting in the same level of suffering. Most people fear pain because they don't understand it. They think suffering is punishment. They think hardship is a sign that they should stop. That's why they never reach their potential. They let pain convince them to quit instead of letting it fuel them to keep going. Pain isn't here to stop you, it's here to build you. It's the weight that makes you stronger, the fire that hardens your will, the challenge that forces you to evolve into something greater. The truth is, if you're not suffering, you're not growing. If your life is easy, you're getting weaker by the second. Strength isn't built in comfort. Resilience isn't formed in safety. Every time you avoid pain, you rob yourself of the chance to become stronger. That's why most people stay average. They refuse to suffer. They choose comfort over growth. And then they wonder why they never achieve anything worthwhile, because they never earned it through struggle. If you've been running from pain, stop, turn around and face it, welcome it, lean into it. Find out what happens when you stop avoiding discomfort and start embracing it. The first time you do this, it will break you. But if you keep going, if you push through, if you refuse to quit, something inside you will change. You'll realize that pain isn't your enemy, it's your greatest teacher. It's the force that separates the weak from the strong, the losers from the winners. Every time you suffer, you have a choice: let it define you or let it refine you. Weak men let pain break them. They turn it into an excuse, a reason to stop, a justification for staying the same. But real men let pain forge them into something unstoppable. They take every hardship, every failure, every setback and use it as fuel. They don't complain. They don't run. They don't make excuses. They take the pain, absorb it, and come back harder than ever. The hardest truth to accept is that no one is coming to save you from pain. No one is going to take away your suffering. No one is going to make your life easier. You either learn to embrace the grind or you stay weak forever. The world doesn't care about your excuses. It doesn't care about your feelings. It only respects those who endure, those who fight through adversity, those who refuse to quit no matter how much it hurts. Weak men break under pressure. They give up when it gets hard. They look for an exit when the suffering starts. But real men stay in the fight. They understand that every moment of pain is a test A test of character, of discipline, of willpower. If you want to be strong, stop dodging the tests. Stop looking for an easier way. Take the hits, take the losses, take the suffering, and use it to become the kind of man who can handle anything life throws at him. There's only one way to become unbreakable. Suffer. Stop running from pain. Stop avoiding hardship. Stop looking for a comfortable life. The strongest men, the most successful men, the hardest men on the planet didn't get there by avoiding suffering. They got there by embracing it, by taking on more than the weak could handle, by stepping into the fire and refusing to come out until they were forged into something unstoppable. That's what real men do. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is guaranteed. Weak men let it destroy them. Real men use it to build something greater. The choice is yours. Stay soft and weak, or lean into the pain and become the kind of man who can handle anything. If you want to be strong, stop running. Step into the fire and let it shape you into something unbreakable. Your word is your backbone. Never break it. A weak man's word crumbles the moment things get tough. He talks big, makes promises, sets goals, but when it's time to execute, he folds. That's the difference between being strong and being a fraud. A real man's word is unshakable. When he commits, it's already done. No excuses, no backing down, no negotiating with himself. Because when your word is weak, you're weak. And when people stop believing in your word, they stop believing in you. Your word isn't just about what you say to others, it's about what you say to yourself. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you train your mind to see you as a liar. You say you'll wake up early, but you hit snooze. You say you'll train, but you skip it. You say you'll change, but you don't. Each time you do this, you kill a piece of your own credibility. And before long, you become the type of man who doesn't even believe in himself anymore. Weak men throw their words around carelessly. They commit to things just to sound good in the moment. They promise change, but never take action. They swear they'll show up, but they disappear when things get inconvenient. And every time they do this, their words lose value. They become empty noise, meaningless chatter. No one respects a man whose words don't mean anything. And if no one respects you, then what do you really have? A real man's word is his bond. If he says it, it's set in stone. There's no second guessing, no backing out, no searching for an exit when things get tough. He treats his commitments like a contract written in blood. Once it's spoken, it must be honored. That's what separates him from the weak. That's why people trust him, follow him, and respect him. Because they know that when he speaks, he means it. And that kind of reputation is earned, not given. Most people live in a constant cycle of breaking their own word. They promise themselves they'll start working harder. Then they quit when it's inconvenient. They say they'll become more disciplined, but they never commit long enough to see results. They keep failing themselves over and over again, and they wonder why their lives never change. It's because they don't take their own words seriously. And if you don't take yourself seriously, no one else will. Your word is your foundation. If it's weak, everything else in your life will be weak. Your relationships, your discipline, your work ethic, it all crumbles when your word means nothing. But if your word is strong, it builds everything around you. People respect you, opportunities come to you, and most importantly, you trust yourself. Because when you say you'll do something, you know damn well it's getting done, no matter what obstacles get in the way. A weak man constantly searches for a way out. He commits to something, but as soon as it gets uncomfortable, he starts making excuses. He breaks his word in small ways, thinking it doesn't matter. But every little broken promise adds up. And before long, he's a man whose word carries no weight. He becomes unreliable, forgettable, invisible. Because in this world, if your word means nothing, neither do you. A real man doesn't make promises he won't keep. He doesn't speak just to impress people. He commits only when he's willing to go all the way. And when he says something, he follows through even when it's inconvenient, even when he's tired, even when no one else is watching. Because he understands that a man's word isn't just about what he says, it's about who he is. And when your word is ironclad, your life becomes unshakable. People who can't keep their word live in constant chaos. They let themselves down. They let others down. And they wonder why nothing in their life is working. It's because they built their existence on lies and broken promises. They don't trust themselves, and neither does anyone else. And that's why they're stuck, spinning their wheels, never making real progress. Because until you honor your word, you will never build the life you want. Your word is your discipline. Your word is your respect. Your word is your power. When you tell yourself you're going to do something, it has to become non-negotiable. There's no I'll try. There's no I hope. There's only I will. Weak men operate on feelings. If they don't feel like doing it, they quit. But real men operate on commitment. When they say they'll do it, they do it no matter how they feel, no matter how much it hurts. A weak man's life is full of broken words and empty promises. He says he'll change, but he never does. He tells people he'll be there, but he always has an excuse. He talks about his dreams, but he never puts in the work. And eventually, people stop listening to him. They stop believing in him. Because when you break your word enough times, you don't just lose the trust of others, you lose the trust of yourself. A real man doesn't need motivation, he needs discipline. And discipline starts with keeping your word. You don't need a reason to follow through. You don't need to feel good about it. You don't need perfect conditions. If you said it, it gets done. That's the law. That's the rule. And if you live by that rule, you become dangerous. Because when a man's word is unbreakable, so is he. There's nothing he can't accomplish because he's already proven to himself that he doesn't quit. When you honor your word, you build momentum. Every commitment you keep strengthens your mind. Every promise you fulfill makes you more disciplined. Every time you follow through, even when it's hard, you become stronger. And before long, you're unstoppable. Because now, when you say something, it's not a wish, it's a guarantee. And people respect a man whose words are backed by action, a man whose word is law. You want to change your life? Start by keeping your word. Stop making promises you won't keep. Stop setting goals and quitting. Stop lying to yourself and expecting to get anywhere. Speak less, do more. Say only what you're willing to execute. And when you say it, follow through every single time. Because in the end, your word is all you have. And if your word is worthless, so are you. But if your word is unbreakable, you become unstoppable. Stop seeking validation. Real men don't need approval. A weak man's biggest addiction isn't drugs, alcohol, or comfort, it's validation. He's starving for approval, constantly looking for someone to pat him on the back, to tell him he's doing a good job, to confirm that he's enough. And because of that, he's a slave. His entire life is controlled by other people's opinions. Every decision he makes, every move he takes is based on whether or not it will make people like him. That's not a man, that's a puppet. A real man doesn't give a damn about approval. He doesn't wake up in the morning wondering if people will like what he's doing. He doesn't shape his identity around fitting in or making others comfortable. He has a mission, and that mission is bigger than anyone's opinion. If people like him, fine. If they hate him, even better. Because the more you stop caring about approval, the freer you become. Weak men seek validation. Strong men seek results. Look around, and you'll see a world full of men desperate to be liked. They change how they talk, how they dress, how they act, all to fit into a box that society built for them. They hold back their true selves because they're afraid of judgment. They let weak people influence their decisions because they're too scared to stand alone. And in the process, they lose themselves. They become versions of what others expect instead of who they were meant to be. Weak men chase applause. They need recognition. They need to hear, good job, every 5 minutes just to keep going. They can't operate in silence. They can't put in the work without someone watching. And that's why they fail. Because greatness isn't built in the spotlight, it's built in the darkness. It's built in the hours when no one is watching, when no one is clapping, when no one gives a damn about what you're doing. That's where real men are made. If you need validation, you're weak. Simple as that. Because the moment you let other people's opinions determine your self-worth, you've lost control. You've handed your power to the outside world. You're no longer the driver, you're a passenger. A real man stands on his own 2 feet. He doesn't need permission to be great. He doesn't wait for approval. He doesn't care if people doubt him, criticize him, or try to pull him down. He moves forward regardless. Every great man in history was criticized, ridiculed, and hated. Why? Because they refused to fit in. They refused to bow down. They refused to waste time seeking approval from people who never did anything great themselves. Weak men care about fitting in. Strong men care about leveling up. And if leveling up means standing alone, so be it. Because real men understand that true strength isn't found in being liked, it's found in being undeniable. Most people are too afraid to be themselves. They spend their entire lives pretending, performing, and playing a role just to gain acceptance. They never say what they really think. They never do what they really want. They never push against the grain because they're terrified of rejection. And that's why they never reach their potential. They're too busy trying to be accepted by people who wouldn't even notice if they disappeared tomorrow. A real man doesn't shrink himself to fit into someone else's mold. He doesn't water himself down to make weak people comfortable. He doesn't silence his opinions just to avoid conflict. He speaks his mind. He moves with confidence. He stands on his beliefs, even if the whole world is against him, because he knows that the second he starts chasing approval, he starts losing himself. And a man who has lost himself is no man at all. Weak men let the opinions of others dictate their actions. They won't take risks because they're afraid of looking stupid. They won't go after their goals because they're afraid of failure. They won't be honest because they're afraid of rejection. And in the end, they stay stuck, trapped in a life they don't want, surrounded by people they don't respect, doing things they hate, all because they were too weak to stop seeking validation. A real man lives on his own terms. He knows that the people who truly respect him aren't the ones who constantly praise him, they're the ones who recognize his strength. They see that he doesn't fold under pressure. He doesn't change for approval. He doesn't chase popularity. He does what needs to be done, whether people understand it or not. And because of that, he earns something far more valuable than validation. He earns respect. Stop looking for approval. Stop waiting for permission. Stop craving recognition. No one is coming to validate you. No one is going to tell you that you're enough. That's your job. That's your responsibility. And if you don't have the strength to validate yourself, you'll spend your entire life begging for scraps of approval from people who don't even matter. That's not a life. That's a prison. And the only way out is to stop giving a damn about what anyone thinks. People will call you arrogant. They'll say you don't care. They'll try to pull you back in. Why? Because the moment you stop needing validation, you become untouchable. You become immune to their opinions. And nothing threatens weak people more than a man who doesn't need their approval. That's why they'll try to shame you, guilt you, make you feel like you're wrong for not fitting in. But the truth is, they wish they had your strength. Most men waste years trying to gain acceptance. They spend their lives building a false version of themselves just to please others. And then one day, they wake up and realize they don't even know who they are. Don't let that be you. Be the man who stands firm. Be the man who speaks his truth. Be the man who refuses to bend for approval. Because at the end of the day, the only validation that matters is the one that comes from within. When you stop chasing validation, you become dangerous. You stop being controlled. You stop hesitating. You stop holding back. And when that happens, your entire life changes. You move with purpose. You execute with confidence. You lead with strength. And people notice. Not because you beg for their approval, because they can't ignore a man who stands tall and refuses to bow. That's what makes you undeniable. That's what makes you a real man. Never complain. It solves nothing. Weak men love to complain. It's their default setting. The moment something gets hard, the moment things don't go their way, they start whining. They want sympathy, attention, and an excuse to quit. But here's the truth: complaining is useless. It doesn't solve problems. It doesn't make you stronger. It doesn't move you forward. All it does is make you look weak. And in this world, weakness gets eaten alive. No one respects a man who runs his mouth instead of handling his business. A real man doesn't waste time complaining. He doesn't sit around feeling sorry for himself. He doesn't blame the world for his problems. He takes ownership. If life hits him hard, he gets back up. If something goes wrong, he finds a solution. If he's in pain, he keeps moving. Because he understands one thing: complaining is a distraction. It gives you an excuse to stay stuck instead of pushing forward. And that's why weak men love it. It gives them a way out. Look at the people who complain the most. They're always the ones going nowhere. They're stuck in the same job, the same bad habits, the same miserable life, and instead of changing it, they just talk about how unfair everything is. They blame their boss, their parents, the economy, the government, anyone but themselves. They waste energy whining when they could be using that same energy to improve. And that's why they stay weak, while real men rise. Every time you complain, you weaken yourself. You tell your mind that you're a victim. You reinforce the idea that you have no control. And once you believe that, you stop trying. That's why complaining is dangerous. It rewires your brain to accept weakness. And once you accept weakness, you'll never do what it takes to become strong. A real man knows that the only way forward is through action. He doesn't talk about what's wrong, he fixes it. Weak men want life to be easy. They think if they complain enough, the world will feel sorry for them and make things better. But no one is coming to save you. No one cares about your excuses. No one owes you anything. You either get up and do the work, or you stay weak. That's the truth. And the sooner you accept it, the sooner you'll stop wasting time with complaints and start building the life you want. A real man expects adversity. He knows things will go wrong. He knows there will be pain, setbacks, failures. And he's ready for it. He doesn't cry about how hard life is. He embraces the challenge. Because he understands that every obstacle is an opportunity to get stronger. Every struggle is a chance to prove himself. And that's what separates him from the weak. While they complain, he adapts. While they make excuses, he executes. And that's why he wins. Weak men let problems control them. The moment things don't go their way, they break down. They let their emotions take over. They start whining, blaming, and giving up. And that's why they never get anywhere. Because life is a test. And every time you complain, you fail. But every time you push through, every time you face adversity without whining, you get stronger. And strength is the only thing that matters. Because in this world, weak men get crushed. A real man trains himself to handle pressure. He doesn't just endure hardship, he thrives in it. He stays calm when things fall apart. He stays focused when chaos surrounds him. He doesn't waste time talking about how unfair life is. He knows life isn't fair. He accepts it, then he does whatever it takes to succeed anyway. And that's why he's unstoppable. Because he understands that complaining is weakness, and weakness has no place in his life. You want to change your life, stop complaining. Stop waiting for things to get easier. Stop expecting the world to hand you something. It's not going to happen. No one cares about your struggles. No one is going to feel bad for you. If you want a better life, you have to take it. You have to put in the work. You have to grind, fight, and push through every obstacle. And the moment you stop complaining and start taking action, you'll separate yourself from the weak. Look at the strongest men in history. None of them got there by complaining. They got there by doing the work. They suffered, struggled, and fought through things that would break most people. But they never ran their mouths about how hard it was. They put their heads down and got it done. That's what makes them legends. That's what makes them different. And if you want to be like them, you have to develop that same mentality. No excuses, no whining, just results. Weak men look for sympathy. Real men look for solutions. That's the difference. If you're always looking for someone to feel bad for you, you're already losing. If you're always looking for someone to fix your problems, you're already weak. A real man doesn't wait for anyone. He takes control. He faces every challenge head on. He figures it out, and he keeps going because he knows that complaining doesn't build strength, overcoming obstacles does. Complaining is a choice, and every time you do it, you're choosing to be weak. You're choosing to focus on the problem instead of the solution. You're choosing to waste time instead of taking action. And that's why weak men never grow. They stay in the same miserable place, crying about how unfair life is, while real men are out there grinding, pushing, and winning. The difference isn't luck. It's mentality. And if you don't change yours, you'll stay stuck forever. A real man takes pride in handling his business without complaining. He doesn't need to broadcast his struggles. He doesn't need the world to see how hard he's working. He just does it. Because he knows that discipline, not sympathy, is what builds strength. And the stronger he gets, the less he needs from anyone else. That's the ultimate goal, to become strong, so disciplined, so relentless, that nothing and no one can break you. When you stop complaining, you take back control. You stop giving your power away. You stop letting circumstances dictate your mindset. And when that happens, you become unstoppable. Because now, no matter what life throws at you, you don't fold, you don't whine. You don't look for an escape. You face it, you handle it, and you move forward. That's what makes you a real man. That's what separates you from the weak. And that's why you will win. Never betray yourself. Always stand by your principles. A man without principles is nothing. He's a leaf in the wind, drifting wherever the world pushes him. He has no foundation, no spine, no strength. He bends for approval, compromises for comfort, and betrays himself just to fit in. That's not a man, that's a coward, because real men stand on something. They don't change their values based on who's watching. They don't sell their soul for convenience. They don't turn their back on what they know is right. Weak men break under pressure. The moment things get tough, the moment someone questions them, they change their stance. They betray their own beliefs just to avoid conflict. And that's why they never command respect. Because people see them for what they are: spineless, weak, and untrustworthy. A man who can't stand by his principles is a man who can't be counted on. And if you can't be counted on, you don't deserve to be called a man. A real man knows who he is. He doesn't need validation. He doesn't need permission. He doesn't need the world to agree with him. He stands firm, no matter what. If the world turns against him, so be it. If people hate him for it, good. That just means he's strong enough to be his own man. Weak men follow the crowd. Strong men walk alone, and if standing alone is the price for staying true to himself, then a real man will pay it every time. Betray yourself once, and it gets easier every time after that. You compromise just a little today, then a little more tomorrow, and before you know it, you're living a lie. You've lost yourself. You've turned into someone you don't even recognize. And for what? Approval, comfort, the illusion of an easier life? There's no price worth paying for your own integrity. Because once it's gone, it's almost impossible to get back. And without it, you are nothing. Look at the strongest men in history. They weren't liked. They weren't accepted. They weren't understood. They were hated, attacked, ridiculed. But they didn't care. They knew their mission. They knew their values. And they refused to betray themselves, no matter how much pressure they faced. That's why they became legends. Because they stood for something when everyone else was too weak to do the same. And that's what real men do. They don't break. They don't bend. Weak men change their values depending on who's in the room. They act one way with one group and another way with someone else. They betray their own principles just to be accepted. And in the process, they lose all respect. No one admires a man who can't stand firm. No one follows a man who can't be trusted. No one believes in a man who doesn't even believe in himself. That's why weak men stay weak, because they're too afraid to stand alone. A real man doesn't betray himself to make others comfortable. He doesn't silence his beliefs just to avoid conflict. He doesn't compromise his integrity just to fit in. He speaks his mind. He holds the line. He stays true to who he is, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, because that's the real test. Can you stand by your principles when the world is trying to break you? Can you stay true when the pressure is crushing you? That's what separates real men from the rest. The world will always try to make you betray yourself. Society will push you to conform, to soften, to compromise. People will pressure you to change, to give in, to become something you're not. And if you're weak, you'll fall for it. You'll sacrifice your values for comfort. You'll trade your integrity for acceptance. And once you do, you'll never get it back. Because the moment you betray yourself, you prove that you can be broken. And from that moment on, you'll always be weak. A real man makes a decision about who he is and never wavers. His principles aren't up for debate. His values aren't negotiable. His integrity isn't for sale. It doesn't matter if it costs him friends, opportunities, or approval. He knows that those things are worthless compared to his own self-respect. Because at the end of the day, he has to live with himself. And he refuses to look in the mirror and see a coward staring back at him. Weak men think that standing by their principles is too hard. They think it's easier to just go along with the crowd, to avoid confrontation, to blend in. But the truth is, betraying yourself is the hardest thing you'll ever do, because it destroys you from the inside. It eats away at your confidence, your strength, your identity. It turns you into someone you hate. And once you go down that road, it's almost impossible to come back. A real man would rather lose everything than lose himself. He would rather stand alone than stand with liars. He would rather fight against the world than betray his own soul. Because he understands one thing at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is who you are when no one is watching. That's the true measure of a man, not his wealth, not his status, not his popularity. His character, his strength, his ability to stand by his principles, no matter what. Weak men make excuses. They say, it's just this one time. They say, I had no choice. They say, it's not a big deal, but every time they compromise, they get weaker. And one day they wake up and realize they've built their entire life on lies. They've become everything they once swore they'd never be. They're empty, broken, lost, all because they were too afraid to stand firm when it mattered. That's the cost of betrayal. And it's never worth it. A real man lives by a code. He sets his values in stone and refuses to break them. He doesn't care if people disagree. He doesn't care if people attack him for it. He knows who he is, and nothing will change that, because that's what true strength is. Not just physical power, not just intelligence, but the ability to stay true to yourself no matter what. That's the mark of a man. That's what makes you untouchable. That's what makes you great. When you stand by your principles, you become unstoppable. You stop being controlled. You stop being manipulated. You stop being weak. And the world will take notice. Not because you asked for their respect, but because you earned it. Because when you refuse to betray yourself, you become the kind of man that nothing and no one can break. That's what makes you different. That's what makes you a real man. And that's why you will win. Stand unbreakable. At the end of the day, the world doesn't care about your excuses. It doesn't care about your struggles. It only recognizes one thing: strength. Not just physical strength, but the strength to hold the line when everything around you is trying to break you. The strength to live by a code when it would be easier to follow the crowd. The strength to be a real man in a world full of weakness. That's the difference between those who rise and those who fade away. A real man doesn't fold under pressure. He doesn't let his emotions control him. He doesn't waste time complaining, chasing approval, or betraying himself just to make life easier. He stands tall no matter how hard it gets. He keeps pushing forward no matter how much pain he's in. He refuses to bow, to break, to be anything less than the strongest version of himself. Because he knows that the second he gives in, he loses everything. This world will test you. It will throw pain, hardship, and temptation in your face. It will try to turn you into something you're not. And if you're weak, you'll fall. You'll make excuses. You'll tell yourself it's not a big deal. And before you know it, you'll be just like every other lost man out there, directionless, spineless, powerless. But if you're strong, if you refuse to bend, if you hold the line no matter what, then nothing can touch you. Real men don't ask for permission to be great. They don't wait for an easier road. They don't make excuses. They get up every day and handle their business. They take ownership of their lives. They set their values in stone and never break them. they'd build themselves into something unbreakable. And because of that, they rise above. They lead. They dominate. They become the kind of men that history remembers not because they were given an easy life, but because they built themselves into something unstoppable. So now the choice is yours. Stay weak or get strong. Make excuses or take control. Betray yourself or stand by your principles. There's no middle ground. You either become a man who refuses to break, or you become just another victim of this world. And if you're not willing to do what it takes, then step aside, because real men are moving forward and nothing is going to stop them. Now get out there and handle your business.